What's going on, everyone? So, the Los Angeles Lakers, right? Austin Reaves. What are they going to do with Austin Reaves? There were reports, did a video earlier about how he can make as much as $40 million on his next contract. He even kind of spoke on his next contract. Again, go check out that video after this video, of course, if you want more details in that regard. I do not want to see the Lakers pay him $40+ million. I think that would be a total disaster. I think he's a very good player. I don't think he is a max, $40+ million guy. I think, 25 to 30 million range, somewhere in that ballpark. With the new CBA, I'd prefer him closer to 25 million, but I think he'll probably get somewhere in that 35 million range. But nonetheless, right, one of my biggest concerns is the Lakers overpay him, and then if they do need to get off of him and it doesn't work out with him and Luka, you're in trouble. Lakers need athleticism, they need defense, they need 3-and-D capabilities out on the wing, out on the perimeter, to kind of better balance Luka Doncic. If DeAndre Ayton works out, right, I've talked about, I would love to have kind of a Luka Doncic with a DeAndre Ayton, and then like 3-and-D type of defensive wings, right? Maybe it's a Jake LaRavia and a Dude Thero, or, a Dude Thero and Jared Vanderbilt. Maybe you're getting another guy, however you want to structure it. Now, there is the argument to be made that the Luka Doncic has had his most success with the secondary shot creator and scorer. You think of Jalen Brunson, you think of Kyrie Irving, right? So there is that logic of Austin Reaves kind of could be that guy, secondary playmaker, secondary scorer, to take the pressure off of Luka Doncic. But I think you can find another kind of bucket getter type thing, maybe not to the level of Austin Reaves, but yes, there is the argument of you don't want to be too Luka Doncic heavy. You want to kind of have another guy that you can kind of lean on, but I think you could find that. I'd prefer to kind of go get the pieces that the Lakers have really struggled with getting over the years, and maybe a guy like a Dude Thero or somebody like that actually evolves into that, or maybe a Jake LaRavia evolves into that, right? Maybe you get one of these young guys that pan out, that can be that kind of secondary scorer, maybe make the occasional play, but also be able to play off of Luka Doncic. I just think that that's something that you could figure out. Well, there is a proposed Minnesota trade, and this comes from the Minnesota side of things. This wasn't a Lakers site or anything like that. This was Minnesota people that threw out the idea of a potential Austin Reaves trade. And in the trade, it would be Austin Reaves and Jared Vanderbilt for Jaden McDaniels and Joe Ingles. Right? So Joe Ingles and Jaden McDaniels for Austin Reaves and Jared Vanderbilt. The logic is the Minnesota Timberwolves really need a playmaker, really need kind of somebody that can run the offense for them, take pressure off, be another scorer, take pressure off of Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards and Austin Reaves have a relationship from FIBA and stuff like that. Austin Reaves, I actually think, makes a ton of sense for a team like Minnesota. They have the wing depth, they have the defense, they have the pieces to kind of mask Austin Reaves, especially with Anthony Edwards slotted alongside of him. So I do think that makes a ton of sense for Minnesota. I actually think that's, you could argue, one of the better places for Austin Reaves is Minnesota. But for the Lakers, they solved their starting three for the next, 10 years. He's 25, he just turned 25 on the 29th. So you're or 29th of September, that is. So you're talking about a guy that is still young enough to where, you'd have him, Luka Doncic and potentially DeAndre Ayton, who DeAndre Ayton might end up being your second guy long-term if that connection works out for the foreseeable future. However, the Minnesota article that talked about this potential trade also even said that Austin Reaves probably would get it's probably like Jaden McDaniels and Joe Ingles probably isn't enough to get it done. And, the idea was that by taking on Jared Vanderbilt, right, that you clear his salary off the books. Honestly, I'd want to keep Jared Vanderbilt. I would look to trade Austin Reaves in like a Maxi Kleba, right? Or if they want to Gabe Vincent, something like that, to where, you're getting a Jaden McDaniels, especially if Minnesota, because again, the Minnesota article says that they do see Austin Reaves as more valuable than Jaden McDaniels. If Minnesota themselves also feels the same way, right? I understand the logic. It's like Minnesota has a clear need, Lakers have a clear need. You can help each other, right, and solve both teams' problems, and everyone's happy. It's like a mutually beneficial trade. But to me, there's two things. Right? For me personally to want to get this trade done. You could make the argument if you get Jaden McDaniels, you might do it. You're talking about literally one of the premier 3-and-D wings in all of basketball. His three-point shooting can be a little inconsistent all over the place, but he's a guy that, one, is a playoff level performer, right? He's a guy that picks it up come postseason, as we've seen in the Lakers series, but he'd also be slotted alongside Luka Doncic and potentially LeBron James, at least this season and maybe next, whatever, however long LeBron decides to stick around, to where the quality of looks he would get, the quality of opportunity that he'd get would just be much higher, with the shot creation of Luka Doncic and what he's able to set guys up and whatnot. So I do think Jaden McDaniels' three-point percentage could tick up, and you're talking about one of the most versatile defensive players and one of the best, if not arguably the best defensive player in all of basketball. Him and Jared Vanderbilt, guys like that, Dyson McDaniels, right? Or Dyson Daniels, not McDaniels, Dyson Daniels, right? You got several guys, Jalen Suggs, that are all kind of in this, like, hey, these guys, as far as perimeter defenders go, are, top of the food chain, so to speak. It's also why, again, I'd want to keep, if I could, kind of keep a Jared Vanderbilt, right? Because then that just gives you that defensive versatility. I know the thought process is like, oh, you get off of his contract, right? You don't have to pay Austin Reaves $30 million. Jaden McDaniels is making, 24, 25 million a year. So, you basically would clear some cap space next season into 2026. You'd clear, Jared Vanderbilt's cap space. Plus, you don't have to pay Austin Reaves 35 plus million. So you'd clear another 10 million off the books in that process, right? So the logic from Minnesota's side of why the Lakers might do this is it would give the Lakers more cap flexibility while retaining one of the premier 3-and-D guys in all of basketball, right? And I love that idea. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. But again, two things to me. One, I'd want to keep Jared Vanderbilt, right? Like, especially if he can kind of improve slightly on the offensive side of things. I think just having Jaden McDaniels and Jared Vanderbilt out there and Jared Vanderbilt's ability to slot in really 2 through 4 for you. Obviously, offensively, you have some concerns. Jared Vanderbilt's contract is, he's making like $10 million a year. It's not enough to where I think it's going to damage the Lakers either way. And you'd still be saving like $10 million by taking on Jaden McDaniels and getting off of Austin Reaves, because you're going to have to pay Austin Reaves, like I said, 35 plus million. So Jaden McDaniels, you save 10 million off the books in that regard. So to me, I think you still kind of solve all the things that you're trying to solve, but now you keep Jared Vanderbilt, who's that kind of other versatile defensive wing, who's up there in conversations with Jaden McDaniels as far as like defensive versatility and presence and stuff like that. And, there's plenty of teams that would probably love to take on a Jared Vanderbilt if he's healthy and can kind of find, his footing once again, to where I think you'd be able, and he's cheap enough, I think you'd be able to trade him at some point if you needed to, right? If it's just like, Jake LaRavia steps up and plays big or something like that. It's like, maybe. But Jaden McDaniels, talk about a guy, 6'9", got the wingspan, the athleticism, the versatility, right? He gave the Lakers fits last year, a guy that can go get you, 20 on any given night. Like, Jaden McDaniels makes a ton of sense. But the other thing that I would want, right? Because I said there was two things. One, I want to keep Jared Vanderbilt. Two, I don't want Joe Ingles, right? Joe Ingles is basically just the salary filler because the Lakers would have to clear off salary to fill in the roster spot if they did like an Austin Reaves and, Jared Vanderbilt for Jaden McDaniels. So Joe Ingles is just kind of the add-in, so that way you at least maintain 14 guys on your roster. Well, if Minnesota looks at, hey, Austin Reaves to the level that the article does, and you could get a Jaden McDaniels, and they're looking at it as like, it costs more. Yeah, maybe you could get like a pick or something like that. Personally, I would stay away from that. You could also expand the trade more, maybe maybe loop a third team in, maybe add another guy, like to where, maybe you can bring in, I don't know, Rob Dillingham or something like that. But I don't know how much sense that makes for the Lakers, right? To me, just keep it simple. Get, Austin Reaves and ideally a Maxi Kleber or Gabe Vincent. Send out one of those two guys for Jaden McDaniels and get a Leonard Miller, right? For those that don't know and aren't familiar with Leonard Miller, he's a guy 21 years old. Right? He'll turn 22 in November 26th. He's 6'10", a 38-inch vertical, and a 7'2" wingspan. Can slot in at either forward position. Now, he is a bit of a project, right? He isn't a guy that I expect to come in immediately and solve all the Lakers' woes and issues and stuff. But He's the exact type of player that you want long-term slotted alongside Luka Doncic, Jaden McDaniels, and DeAndre Ayton. Now, if you can spend the next 2 years or so kind of developing Leonard Miller into maybe that power forward spot to where you have an athletic, versatile dunker spot, stretch the floor, do a little bit of everything, kind of 6'10", 7'2" wingspan forward, right? Now you have the vision you're looking for, right? Now you have Luka Doncic. You could go with, an Adu Thero, a Jaden McDaniels, a Leonard Miller, and a DeAndre Ayton, assuming, Thero and Miller both pan out, right, into the level that you need to. I mean, you're talking, you could potentially win multiple championships. You every year be a contender. You have now the size, the length, the athleticism, the defensive versatility. You have everything you need to be one of the best teams, if not the best team in all of basketball for years, right? It just comes down to one, health, and two, can a Leonard Miller and a Adu Thero, can those guys, as well as Jaden McDaniels to an extent, can those guys be good enough shooting the three ball, right? If all three guys can be, 37% from three-point range, nothing crazy, but if they can all be, say 37% from three-point range, now you have Luka Doncic who draws all that attention, kicking out to guys, shooters who are knocking it down. You have the defense, you have the athleticism, you have the versatility, you have everything that you want from this team, and then you're just rounding out the bench depth and all those things, and you got guys that are cheap enough, right? Leonard Miller's been in the league 2 years, not really much of a sample size. He's only in those 2 years played 30 games total. He's only averaging basically 3 minutes per game, 2.8 minutes per game. He's only averaging 1.2 field goal attempts per game. He did, though, however, his rookie season shoot 40% from three-point range, but it was on 0.3 attempts. So you don't really have the sample size to really gauge how good he would be or not. His per 36, which again, per 36 doesn't tell you everything. It's, an inflated number, especially for a guy like him that is basically playing 2-3 minutes and, shooting 70%, right? But his per 36 for his career is 21 points, 13.3 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. He's basically Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? Now I'm not expecting Leonard Miller to be that, but can he develop into, say, a 13, 6, and 2 guy with a block per game, right? Can he be a guy that gives you, 13 points, 6, 7 rebounds, couple assists, 1.5, 2 steals, and, a block per game? Now you have everything that you want. It would be hard for me to say no to that, honestly. If you could get Jaden McDaniels and, right, because I talked about Herb Jones and stuff like that. I'd love to get Herb Jones. But if you can get Jaden McDaniels, I mean, again, you're talking about arguably the best defensive player in all of basketball, right? Or at least perimeter on-ball defender in all of basketball that has the size, the length, and athleticism to defend basically every position on the floor. Not really so much fives, but you get the point, right? I don't know how you turn that down. Honestly, I think if you're the Lakers, I think you get that done and you make that happen. And, especially if you can get Leonard Miller, can you maybe get another piece or two, maybe a pick or something? I don't know. Can you get something else? Kind of really try to push the issue. But if you told me the Lakers basically traded, Maxi Kleba and Austin Reaves for Jaden McDaniels and Leonard Miller, I'd be all for that. Sign me up. And again, you kind of save some cap space. I think it'd be a great option for the Lakers. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. Lets me enjoy these types of videos. I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.